Hello dear parents, welcome to today's video. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. It's about a couple of weeks ago I listened to a sermon at our church by the pastor's wife, and she discussed taming the tongue, and it really resonated with me, and I also saw how it really relates to adoptive parenting. So I said, okay, let me do a video about this and pull out some key points from it to discuss together with you. So the scripture that was taken from James 3 verses 1 to 12. So you're more than willing to read that before you continue this video. So if you're new here, welcome. I'm myCaRE&CO. I help Christian adoptive parents navigate the post-adoption season with faith, neuroscience, and connection to move through the trauma, the stress, and the overwhelm to nurturing home, healing connections, and to walk in the grace and wisdom that God provides. And in this channel, I provide gentle encouragement, faith-filled wisdom, and trauma-informed tools for adoptive parents who are walking through the real, the hard, and the beautiful parts of parenting. So let's dive in. There is, by the way, there is no worksheet today, but I will link to this sermon in case you want to listen to it in full. I hope you have your tea, your coffee, and we can discuss taming the tongue together. So why does this matter for adoptive parenting? How does it relate to adoptive parenting? We know that when we're parenting someone who has past trauma history, you're dealing with these big behaviors, these big emotional outbursts, and you're also human. So you might be feeling drained, exhausted, and what happens is because we're feeling drained and exhausted, sometimes we let things slip out of our mouth that maybe later we regret. So this is the whole topic about this taming the tongue. And what I also like is that because it has a lot of biblical foundation in it. It's amazing how much the Bible can talk about this taming the tongue and what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing. So let's pull out these key points and discuss them together. So first, what I want to discuss is you. And I want to bring up again blocked care. So this blocked care is about, if you haven't heard about the term, it's a technical term, and it relates to when we parent someone it's a very stressful situation. So again, there's those big behaviors, those emotional outbursts, and you feel like you're going, and you feel like you're burning out. You feel so stressed, so disconnected, so guilty, so overwhelmed that your own body starts shutting down. And you go into what is called blocked care, where you're not feeling any emotions. And it's a normal part of the body, how the body works, where you are shutting down, your body is protecting you from all those feelings, all those roller coaster of emotions. And sometimes what happens is you're in survival mode. And sometimes what happens is because we're in this survival mode and we're in this protection mode, you start speaking to yourself. So I want you to examine and see, how are you talking to yourself? Most of us talk to ourselves much more mean than any person ever would, actually. So we would say, oh, my life is hell. Why would I even think I could have a peaceful family? Why would I think that my child's behaviors are going to change? I'm a bad parent. I can't control my kids. What I'm doing is everything is wrong. So what you're talking to yourself is all negative. And I want to challenge you to see what you're talking to yourself and change that. So as soon as you start noticing that you're going in this trajectory of being negative and putting yourself down, you say, wait, this is not what God wants from me. So let me speak life into my situation. Let me speak positive thoughts. And maybe you hold your words, your thoughts captive. Because what happens is sometimes these words that we're speaking to ourselves, that you are speaking to yourself, becomes kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And we don't want that. So again, once you hear yourself saying that, then you say, stop, wait, and you're going to change the discourse, what you're saying to yourself. The next thing that you want to examine is what you're saying to yourself and what you're saying to your kids. So think about it. What words have been spoken over your life that has actually steered your life? It could be positive and it could be negative. So reflecting on those points that somebody has spoken to you about and see how that changed the trajectory of your life. And being a parent is hard because there's a big weight on us about what we're saying to our kids, what you are saying to your kids. And it doesn't mean that we have to be perfect all the time, but we can change the situation. We can tame the tongue. So sometimes out of a stressful situation, we might be saying things to our kids like, "What's wrong with you? You always do this. Why don't you listen? I'm so tired of this." And what happens is, we don't say it because we don't love our child, but because the whole situation is too much, and it's like we become so dysregulated and desperate for change. But the truth is this, that our words steer our homes. And like James 3 says, the tongue is small, but directs the course of our lives. So we have to be mindful of what we're talking to our kids about. Because the thing is that our kids, especially with past trauma, they're internalizing all those words, and they're believing them that it is true, that they are too much, that there's something wrong with them, that mom, dad is too tired of me and I'm causing lots of problems. And they start internalizing that, and they start believing it so much that they start acting it out, which backfires on you as a parent, but also harms the kids in the long run. And this is, I'm sure, this is not what you want. James reminds us, with the same tongue, we bless God and curse people who are made in His image. And that feels so heavy, and it convicts me so much, that with the same words, I can bless God, but at the same time I can also curse people, which includes our children who are made in His image, who He loves so much. So there's so much weight on that. And again, it's not about perfection, but it's about protecting our kids and building them in who they should be. So now let's go over some practical ways how to tame the tongue. So number one is pause before you speak. And this has so much weight. Sometimes, we feel angry and then we justify that we said it out of anger. So just practice this pause before saying. And saying, sometimes, just because it's true, it doesn't mean it needs to be said. Ask yourself, will this bring connection? Will this bring healing? Or is it going to give us conflict? And as the adult in the home, we kind of have more control over ourselves as adults than our kids have. So as an adult in the home, how can I hold the peace? How can I think? How can I pause before I speak? And I'm teaching my kids to do the same eventually as they start learning more. The second thing is speak truth in love. And again, and the pastor's wife really emphasized this, and she kept on saying that it doesn't mean that if it's true, I have to say it. You have to think the purpose and the motivation behind why you want to say it. Are you saying it out of love? Are you saying it out of wanting that person to change? And are you saying it maybe in a peaceful situation when everybody is calm and you're grouping and you're interested in learning the other person's perspective, your child's perspective in all this? And again, it's not about not giving any perspective if it's negative, so to say, because at least most of my growth has happened when somebody has said something hard to me. But being careful when to say these things, and being purposeful of how to say it, and sitting with this person to kind of walk them through when you're saying this hard thing. And maybe you can also give some suggestions or discuss some suggestions together of how we can change things together. So you're not alone in this, because our kids are still young and they need us to figure things out. Another thing, number 3, is use redirection instead of accusation when you communicate. So instead of saying things like, you always lie, we can say things like, I want to understand what made it hard to tell the truth. And we always were taught about, instead of saying you sentences, you say I sentences, and it feels less accusatory. Another is starting your sentences with finding the positive, like I like it when you. So I like it when you make the bed in the morning. I like it when you pick up your socks. I like it when you call me to communicate what's happening. So instead of saying again, it's all I sentences versus you. So instead of saying like things like you always, or why do you keep throwing your socks on the floor? Why can't you clean up after yourself? Why do I hear from everybody else instead of you? So you see how those things, like little shifts, change. And they also change, we talk a lot about that felt safety. So it also changes the felt safety of the child, and also changes the way they react to you, because your tone is different, the way you're talking is different. So communicate what you want instead of what you don't like. Number 4, so speak what you want to see. So saying things like, you're working hard to manage your big feelings. That was a kind choice you made. I love you even when it's messy. So you see, like speaking those positive, it takes practice, and it takes some mistakes as well. And that's normal, because you're learning and it's something different. The next one is examine your heart. So again, like a key point that was discussed is that our words ultimately reflect what's inside our heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. And the Bible is clear about this. And that's when we see ourselves speaking death into situations. So Luke 6:45 says, a good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and an evil man brings out evil things stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. So thinking about this is, how many times have something spilled out of my mouth? The pastor's wife gave this analogy actually. It's when you squeeze toothpaste, what comes out? It comes out toothpaste. So if something else comes out, then you'll be surprised. So the same thing is, what is inside us comes out. So it will be surprised if we have this heavy heart that kind words come out. And sometimes we might have this heavy heart because of the situation we're in. And again, that relates to this blocked care, where the situation is too much that your own body is protecting you. But our hearts kind of like can become bitter a little bit. So looking into what can we change in our heart, and also knowing that, and the Bible is clear as well about this, is that we need to change our heart, but it's also we need God's help to control our speech, because at the end of the day, this is a spiritual battle that we're facing. The next point is practice silence when needed. Again, similar to a pause, and sometimes there's not even a pause, it's silence. So sometimes the kindest thing is saying nothing until everybody is regulated, until you are regulated, and until your kids are regulated. So you can say, I need a moment to calm down before I respond. So letting them know what's happening before you go silent. Letting them know so that they're warned and they don't think that your silence means your disapproval, your unlove for them. And then regroup again when everybody is calm and discuss the matter. The next point, and the last point, and which is a very important point, is we have to ask God for help. As we said, this is a spiritual battle. Psalm 141:3 says, set a guard over my mouth, God. Keep watch over the door of my lips. So going in prayer and seeking out where your heart is bitter, and asking God to show you that, but also asking God to help you fight this battle, so that together you're fighting this battle, where you're trying to examine your heart and then taming the tongue. So we discussed some tips, but also the tips, we need God's help to be able to do all this, because as we said before, it's a spiritual battle that we're facing, and alone we cannot do it. And that's what's so positive about us people who have faith, that we have God with us. We know that this is spiritual warfare that we're dealing with. So there's a reason behind all this, but we also know that God is with us and that God can help us in this battle. So that gives us some strength, that gives us some power over these words that come out, that we know that we can change with God's help. The last thing that I want to discuss is, so when we say things that we shouldn't be saying, we can repair. So repair is very important. In therapy, we also talk a lot about the power of repair. So we make mistakes, everybody makes mistakes. And then the importance of sitting down with your child to repair. Let's assume it's with your child. So sitting down with your child to repair, and you're also teaching a lesson to your child that even though I say something which is not good, it's not good saying it, but we can also repair. Again, not to justify that that's okay, I can say all the bad words and then I can repair. But you know, when we're in the moment, we're in that heat and we're overstressed and overwhelmed and everything is happening and something slips out of our tongue, we can apologize and we can say sorry. And we can then reflect, how can this not happen again? What do I need in those moments so that this doesn't happen? So again, like most of the things are that pause and that silence, and then regrouping again when everybody is calm. So taming the tongue in adoption isn't about being perfect. We're not perfect human beings. It's about being intentional, being compassionate, being honest, and mostly anchored in God's grace. I hope you have found this helpful. Let me know in the comments below. Share with another adoptive parent who might find this helpful, and subscribe to the channel. I'll be doing more videos. The next phase of videos is all going to be about blocked care. That's in the pipeline next. And if you're looking for more practical support on this journey, I invite you to check out my group coaching program. It's a faith-informed, neuroscience-backed group program for adoptive parents like you, where we discussed mainly blocked care and how we can support you, and you in turn can support your child. Thank you for watching. Have a beautiful day. Bye.